The night of the tornado, I was on the control board at Wren Radio. We became aware of the tornado's existence when the information was transmitted by Rick Douglas, who was driving a Wrenmobile and had taken his position on top of Burnett's Mound, where someone always went, because that was the ideal place to see if there was any trouble boiling up in the southwest. And he did see the tornado coming, which caused him to take off in the Wrenmobile off the mound, and my most distinct memory is hearing him call on the two-way and say, "Steve, quick, give it to me. I got to make a report." And I didn't find out until days later that what he had seen was a house rise straight up off its foundation, go into the air, and disappear. So apparently it just exploded. His newsman's tendencies were to report that, but at the same time he realized he wasn't going to be able to get away from what was blowing up houses, and so he actually got up under the underpass of the interstate there and was blown out by the tornado and rolled down Gage Boulevard, and fortunately survived that little experience. The Wrenmobile that he was in wound up in the basement of one of the apartment complexes there on Gage, and I don't know how we got that out. I remember after the tornado, one of our other guys at Wren, Chuck Patrick, went out in another Wrenmobile, and I said, "Chuck, go see if it did any damage to my apartment." And shortly thereafter, he came back with the message, "I can't find it." And I said, "What do you mean you can't find it? You know where I live." And he said, "I know where you lived." He said, "You lived in an apartment that no longer is there." So I managed to win my way back out there after things had settled down a little bit. And I lost my living room in the apartment, but I did manage to salvage some record albums. And these are some old ones that I had actually bought some little time before the tornado back in '66. And the front of them doesn't look so bad, but if you turn them around, you can see the tar that was driven into these albums. I was always very careful with them and tucked them into their sleeves and sheltered them in their shucks, and the albums are fine. They didn't get hurt at all, but the covers, not so pretty. You can pick up the story there.
All right. Well, I was a single young 19-year-old living at 1310 Jackson, close to the bus depot, and I would walk to work every day to Wren, where I knew Steve. The sky began to get to be such a horrible green color that I decided I needed to go outside and look. Wandered out into the backyard, and there my neighbors were, whom I didn't really know. Even the people in my fourplex I didn't know, but we were all standing out there watching the stuff start to come through the air, the little bits of insulation. We began to hear this noise, which did sound rather like a freight train coming our way. We decided maybe we'd go to the basement. We felt fortunate to have one. And I ran up the stairs and got my 10-week-old Siamese kitten, brought her down, and we all went in the basement. Now, it wasn't long before we were crowded in the southwest corner, and these people I didn't know, I felt that I was violently grabbing them all of a sudden and hoping that if something I could hang on to them. I could feel them screaming, but I could not hear them. My cat I had stuffed her in my shirt, and she was scratching my chest, but I did not even notice that until probably the next day. When we emerged, it was to the sight of items hanging from trees, limbs down. I noticed that the neighbors next door who were climbing out, their eyes were as big as saucers, and I thought probably mine were too. I didn't know at the time that the bus depot or the city bus garage had been just demolished along with the buses. I later learned that Steve and Dick Brewster had gone to the municipal auditorium which is now TPAC, and reported me as missing. That's when I began to look at Steve a little differently, because I just thought he was a smart ass, and his concern for me was
That's right.
very touching. So, see, I got a boyfriend out of the deal, and then eventually a husband,
It's
many
not,
grandkids, and a great grandkids.
it's not an ill wind that blows no good, I guess.